The KiwiEars Canta is a new budget hybrid IEM in the sub $100 category and is certainly a strong contender for best cheap IEM of 2024. Let's get right into it for something a little different yet all too familiar. Here's a reminder to hit the like and subscribe button, and this will help me out a whole lot. If you are already subscribed, I heard that Santa is feeling a little bit more generous this year and will give you more presents. Unboxing, very typical of KiwiEars, it has a sleeve that shows a render of the IEMs and just some information on the driver configuration, which we will talk about in a bit. Inside the box is, as you expected, the earphones themselves, and below that is the carrying case, which contains the cables as well as 3 sets of ear tips for you to mess around with. This is a very typical KiwiEars setup and isn't all too different from what has been offered before. Next up, build quality. The build quality of the Canta is classic KiwiEars, mixing resin inner shell with a metal faceplate. The CNC aluminum faceplate is a dynamic design with the KiwiEars logo lasered onto the lower half and is an extremely slick looking IEM. The physical lightness of the IEM might throw some people off, but it feels very solid like the rest of the KiwiEars lineup. Some might be turned off by the inner shell of the IEM being in glossy resin, as that collects oil stains rather easily. But the good thing is, it is really easy to clean with no odd crevices to navigate. Inside the Canta is where things get more interesting. It uses one dynamic driver plus 2 planar drivers. KiwiEars did not disclose too much on the specifics, but I suspect that the planar used here are different from the larger sort that you see on things such as the LetShouer S08 2024 or the Heidi's MP145, as those are huge. That's what she said. It's just not physically possible to put 2 of those drivers in this small little chassis. The cable is undoubtedly simple, but it's effective. A 4-core black sleeve cable in 0.78 2-pin termination is soft and pliable. It barely have any microphonics and it's comfortable for long hours of use. The unintrusiveness means that it is a great on-the-go IEM too, and can be an option for professionals with the stellar sound it provides. More on that a little bit later. Pliability is also a high point for the cable, which means it's easy to untangle should you ever encounter that sort of mishap. Ear tips are pretty standard on the KiwiEars Canta, but they really match up well with them. So, I mean, you get 3 pairs, you can literally choose whichever you like. Comfort for the Canta is its small size means that it's really comfortable for most ear sizes, and the nozzle angle is perfect for me. It sits relatively flush and does not have any pressure spots, and it barely makes any hard contact with my ears at any weird positions. For a sub $100 IEM, it's great. But at the same time, there are plentiful of other IEMs which also reach this kind of standards for build quality, and that has kinda became the norm and is to be expected. But all in all, it's a great package, especially when it comes to sound. KiwiEars lauds the fact that Canta manages to fit a full-size dynamic driver along with 2 custom planar drivers in a rather small shell, and that provides it with an exceptional audio performance. While those DD planar hybrids aren't too uncommon these days, having one at a very affordable price point with a stellar sound is definitely a strong point to celebrate. By combining the strong points of both driver types, the Canta can certainly fight with several IEMs above its price point. Kicking things off with bass, the bass of the Canta has a fine balance of various aspects. First off, the dynamic driver provides a nice deep sub-bass rumble, but it isn't tuned to bloat and flush out the rest of the frequency range. The speed and response of bass notes are clearly heard with good perception of bass details in some tracks, and yet it's impactful enough to give a visceral kick. It works well with complex bass tracks like those seen in some trap or house genres, but never seem to take center stage and overwhelms the rest of the frequencies. It blends the bass into part of a larger picture instead of giving the listener a smaller puzzle piece and letting you piece the track together. Mid-range. Mids are arguably the star here despite the stellar bass performance. The presentation of the mid-range is detailed and prominent, giving an almost euphoric sensation. Its vocal-centric quality is nicely blended into the bass and treble frequencies and don't feel disjointed like how other hybrids can sound like. Again, the puzzle pieces versus the entire picture analogy plays well here. Details are presented with a hint of warmth. The texture of vocals are soft but not smoothened over completely, although some might prefer a more aggressive presentation. But for the price, these are certainly good. Treble. Treble is well extended and fairly flat. No weird peaky response. The planars carry a lot of treble energy without it being too abrupt, and the extension gives it a great airiness and sparkle. It is coherent all the way up to the top, and details are well laid out. Presentation of treble is a star at this price too. Soundstage is not particularly wide or tall, but it's got some width. It's perhaps one of the weaker points of the Canta, but the overall tuning is so good that it's a reasonable drawback to have. Imaging is also pretty good, with positional cues being a fairly strong point too. Technicalities are solid, great detail, good attack and decay, and this accumulates in a very coherent package. Nothing in particular is weak or odd, and everything sounds cohesive. Of course, we need to talk about some comparisons. So firstly, versus the LetShouer S08. Now the LetShouer S08 is another solid contender, but at a slightly higher price point. The bass on both IEMs are similarly proficient, so no real differences here. Mids are a bit more divisive, but can be more in the favor of the Canta for its more warm presentation for those who prefer a more vocal-centric tuning. Treble is better extended in the Canta, but these two are very similar in many other regards, with slight differences in technicalities and particularly tuning. And this can tilt the scales in either's favor depending on your preference. Next up, versus the Simgot EA500LM. Priced as it is, the Canta will undoubtedly be compared to the EA500LM. I think both the EA500LM and Canta are excellent earphones with great tonality for those of you who like a slight elevation on the upper mids. The Simgot is more cohesive as it achieves this through the use of a single dynamic driver, but the Canta isn't too far back either. I found the Canta to be slightly smoother in this comparison. Next up, versus the Dunu Titan S2. Now the Dunu Titan S2 is a warm pair that is quite different from the Canta. I found that the Canta walks over the Titan S2 when it comes to resolution. For some reason, the Titan S2 isn't as resolving despite me throwing all my best gears on them. But the thing is, the Titan S2 does offer a warmer signature, and if that is your jam, then go for it. Otherwise, the Canta is a better overall choice. So next up, some things that I like and don't like about the Canta. So just about everything, as a whole, the Canta is a very solid package, especially when it comes to price. Its fit is also very comfortable, tuning is great, and it can basically work with almost all genres thrown at it. Next up, some things that I do not like. Now the stock cable, while decent and serviceable, it is truthfully just cheap and kinda meh. And this could be better, but it's kinda understandable at the price. Also, packaging is just basic. And finally, rating. So all that said, now let's rate the Canta. So starting off with bass. Bass has good texture, it's fast, it's dynamic, so it gets a 7. Mid-range has surprising levels of clarity in the price range, and I think it's amazing, so it gets an 8. Treble is, well, pretty well extended and also rather airy, a solid 7. When it comes to resolution, it is very impressive, it gets a 7.5, and lastly, Soundstage. It is good for its class, although it's a bit on the weaker side in its overall package, it gets a 7. And most importantly, the enjoyment factor. I found myself enjoying the Canta quite a lot, and this has been my earworm for the past week or so, so it gets a solid A. So then again, given all that, here is the question. What Canta do? Dude, that's so bad. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode of the Super Chunk Super Audio Show. If you like the content so far, please press the like and subscribe button. If you have already done so, you are a fantastic person, and some say you will get a free earphone someday. With that said, I hope to see you guys soon.